Welcome to our video about the fascinating world of Pokemon and their placement on the Tree of Life. Today, we will take a closer look at Nidoking and Nidoqueen and their relationships with Sandslash. Rhinoceroses, Rhinocerotidae, or rhinos, form a family of odd-toed ungulates, Perissodactyla, with currently 5 living species. They are characterized by a robust body and short limbs with 3 toes, as well as a large head, which in all living representatives today, bears a distinctive feature consisting of 1 or 2 horns, which give the family its name. The family represents one of the most diverse and successful in the history of mammals, and was widespread across large parts of Eurasia, Africa, and North America during their nearly 50 million years of evolutionary history. Their decline began at the end of the Miocene about 6 to 5 million years ago, linked to climatic changes and associated landscape transformations, leading to the extinction of North American and many other rhinoceros species in their original range. Towards the end of the Pleistocene, another extinction phase occurred, during which all North Eurasian representatives disappeared. The surviving species include the white and black rhinoceroses in sub-Saharan Africa, as well as the Indian, Javan, and Sumatran rhinoceroses in southern and southeastern Asia, which have also significantly declined due to habitat destruction and poaching. Rhinoceroses are large to very large mammals. Today's living representatives have a head-body length ranging from 2.5 to 3.8 meters, plus a 40 to 60 centimeters long tail, with shoulder heights varying from 1.2 to 1.8 meters and body weights ranging from 500 to 3,600 kilograms. The largest living species of rhinoceros is the white rhinoceros, Ceratotherium simum. However, fossil records show even larger species. Some representatives of Elasmotherium and Brachypotherium each weighed more than 5,000 kilograms. In general, rhinoceroses have a massive body with a large head and short, sturdy legs. Each foot has 3 toes that end in broad hooves. The skin is thick and gray or brown. In Asian species, the skin at the base of the neck and legs is heavily folded, giving the appearance of armor. Most modern rhinoceroses are hairless except for the tips of the ears and the ends of the tails. However, the Sumatran rhinoceros, Dicerorhinus sumatrensis, still has a relatively dense coat. The woolly rhinoceros, Coelodonta antiquitatus, had a very dense coat, as evidenced by carcasses preserved in the Siberian permafrost, and it is assumed for some other extinct rhinoceros species. Furthermore, rhinoceroses have poor eyesight, but this disadvantage is compensated by a keen sense of smell and very good hearing. Rhinoceroses have a very large skull, which is usually elongated and elevated at the occipital bone. The nasal bone is often massive, noticeably curved forward, and protrudes over the intermaxillary bone. At the points where the horns are attached, there are distinct, usually pearl or cauliflower-shaped roughened structures on the bone surfaces. The brain case is relatively small. The dentition is very variable, but generally reduced in today's rhinoceroses. In African rhinoceroses, the entire anterior dentition, consisting of incisors and canines, is absent. Asian rhinoceroses, on the other hand, have 1 or 2 pairs of incisors in each upper and lower jaw half. The innermost upper incisors, I1, have a chisel-like shape, while the second lower incisors, I2, resemble tusks or small fangs. This is referred to as the chisel-tusk complex. It is also found in numerous extinct representatives and serves to distinguish rhinoceroses from their closest relatives. Like all odd-toed ungulates, the molars have 2 transverse enamel ridges on the chewing surface, bilophodont. As a general characteristic, the enamel on the chewing surfaces of the front 2 upper molars forms a characteristic pie shape, while on the lower molars it forms an L shape. This feature applies to all fossil rhinoceroses and their closest relatives, indicating that it developed around 50 million years ago. Depending on the diet, the posterior molars can be low-crowned, brachiodont, or high-crowned, hypsodont. In recent species, the premolars are largely molarized, meaning they differ little from the molars. Depending on evolutionary development, there are different degrees of molarization of the premolars in individual fossil species. Primitive rhinoceroses still had the complete dental formula consisting of 3 incisors, 1 canine, 4 premolars, and 3 molars in each jaw half. The most reduced dentition was found in Elasmotherium, with only 2 premolars and 3 molars in each jaw half. Additionally, the molars of this rhinoceros genus had the highest crowns within the entire order of odd-toed ungulates, surpassed only by some rodents. The reduction in the number of teeth began very early in the evolutionary history of rhinoceroses. Generally, the lower canine was the first to disappear, followed by the outermost lower and upper incisors and the upper canine. A significant and visually striking feature of rhinoceroses is their horns. Depending on the species, there is either 1 or 2 horns in modern representatives. For example, the Indian rhinoceros, Rhinoceros unicornis, and the Javan rhinoceros, Rhinoceros sondaicus, have only one front horn, nasal horn, which grows from the nasal bone. The African rhinoceros species, the white and black rhinoceros, Diceros bicornis, and the Sumatran rhinoceros, on the other hand, have 2 horns, with the nasal horn also sitting on the nose, while the rear, frontal horn, grows on the frontal bone. In extinct rhinoceros species, the horns can usually only be inferred from the attachment points on the skull. For instance, representatives of the genus Elasmotherium had only 1 horn on the forehead, while those of Dicerotherium had 2 nasal horns, and those of Aceratherium possibly had none. The horn consists of agglutinated keratin, a fibrous protein also found in hair, and despite its strength, contains neither bone nor, as sometimes mistakenly claimed, ivory. It is made up of numerous long, thread-like strands, called horn columns or filaments, whose spaces are solidified with horn substance. These strands run the entire length of the horn but taper significantly towards the top. The core of the horn is much denser and usually black, becoming noticeably more fibrous and light gray towards the outside. Fossil horn is so far only known from the woolly rhinoceros and has essentially the same structure as modern horn. The horn wears down over time through rubbing on the ground or stones and can break off in fights with conspecifics or due to traumatic events, but it grows back throughout the animal's life. The largest known horn measured 1.58 meters along its front curve. Rhinoceroses today live in sub-Saharan Africa and South and Southeast Asia, both in savanna landscapes and tropical rainforests in high or lowlands. However, their original distribution was much wider. The earliest species can be traced back to the Middle Eocene around 50 million years ago in Eurasia and North America. Rhinoceroses first reached Africa with the closing of the Tethys Ocean and the creation of a land bridge in the early Miocene about 20 million years ago. By the end of the Miocene and into the Pliocene, around 4 million years ago, rhinoceroses became extinct in North America due to climate changes. During the Pleistocene, with its highly fluctuating climate, rhinoceroses were also widespread in northern Eurasia, living in subarctic tundra landscapes. By the end of the last ice age, rhinoceroses disappeared from northern Asia and Europe. Throughout their evolutionary history, different rhinoceros species occupied almost all ecological niches available to large, terrestrial mammals. Rhinoceroses often live solitary lives, but can also form small, matriarchal herds in savannas. Bulls are usually solitary and live territorially. Individual animals inhabit well-defined territories marked with urine and dung, as well as frequently traveled paths. During the day, rhinoceroses sleep or stay in wallows, becoming active and feeding at dusk and night. They are shy animals that avoid human proximity. Reports of their aggressiveness are generally highly exaggerated. When attacks do occur, they are rarely targeted but can end in fatal injuries due to the horns, front teeth, and the animal's strength and mass. A rhinoceros can run up to 45 km per hour, 12.5 meters per second, slightly faster than top human athletes, and can change direction abruptly. Additionally, 2 different strategies can be observed in fights. Asian rhinoceroses, which all have front teeth, rarely use their typically small horns in fights that are highly ritualized horn battles. The actual weapons are the dagger-like lower incisors, which can cause dangerous and deep wounds. African rhinoceroses, which lack front teeth, use their often much longer horns, especially the nasal horn, not only for display but also actively as weapons for self-defense, territory defense, and food protection, weakening the opponent by impaling. During a cow's mating season, fights can occur between bulls, with the winner courting the female in a conspicuous manner. This involves mutual chasing or mock fights, followed by copulation. After a gestation period of 15 to 18 months, a calf is born, which can stay with the mother for 2.5 to 3 years. If a second calf is born, the older one is at least temporarily driven away by the mother for the duration of nursing. The life expectancy of today's rhinoceroses is between 30 and a maximum of 50 years. The age determination of fossil species is mostly done by comparison to the white rhinoceros and is based on anatomical features such as tooth eruption, where degree of individual teeth, or fusion stages of certain bone sutures. In general, life expectancy in mammals is closely linked to the body weight of adult animals. For extinct rhinoceroses that were similar in size to today's, it was probably within a comparable range. More detailed analyses of individual fossil populations are rare. For Pleistocene representatives, this mostly concerns the woolly rhinoceros, Coelodonta antiquitatis. For older forms, such studies are known for more common genera like Teleoceras, Chilitherium, or Plesioceritherium from the Miocene. In the latter case, the discovery of a female skeleton with a single fetus in the abdominal cavity shows that the rhinoceros's reproductive strategy with a single offspring per birth, K-strategy, was already pronounced at least 18 million years ago. The rhinoceros species that live today, largely inhabiting open landscapes such as African rhinos and the Indian rhinoceros, are often accompanied by birds like oxpeckers or cattle egrets, which sit on their skin and clean them of parasites. The alarm calls of the oxpeckers also warn the animals of dangers or disturbances, including humans, at distances of 27 to 61 meters. With a higher number of oxpeckers, a rhinoceros can detect potential disturbances from a greater distance, but the calls do not indicate the direction. The rhinos determine this using their sense of smell. This behavior has not been observed in the predominantly tropical rainforest-dwelling Javan and Sumatran rhinoceros, which is related to their lifestyle in closed habitats. Young animals can occasionally be preyed upon by big cats and hyenas, and sometimes by wild dogs, but adult rhinoceroses have no natural predators other than humans. Most fossil representatives also rarely had to fear confrontations with predators, though occasionally bite wounds are found in now extinct representatives, caused by very large carnivores. All rhinoceroses are exclusively herbivorous and are adapted to this diet with broad molars. However, the species have specialized in different plant foods. 4 of the 5 living rhinoceros species prefer soft plant foods such as leaves, branches, twigs, buds, and fruits, browsing. The molars of these species usually have low crowns and less dental cement. Additionally, these rhinoceros species have a rather right-angled short occipital bone due to their high head posture. The Indian rhinoceros, Rhinoceros unicornis, also partly feeds on grasses, but has a pointed, movable upper lip like the other browsing rhinoceros species. The white rhinoceros is the only living rhinoceros species fully adapted to a grass diet, grazing. Since grasses contain silica, which is very hard, the white rhinoceros has developed teeth with high crowns and a high proportion of dental cement due to the high wear from chewing. The permanently low head posture during feeding led to the evolutionary elongation of the occipital bone, resulting in a low head posture and the formation of a neck hump. Furthermore, the white rhinoceros has broad, bulbous lips, which give it its name. Most fossil rhinoceroses were specialized in soft plant foods due to their anatomy. However, throughout their evolutionary history, due to climate and related landscape changes, various rhinoceros lines independently, convergent evolution, specialized in grass diets. In more modern rhinoceroses of the Rhinoceratini group, this was associated with changes in skull anatomy, including the elongation of the occipital bone and a resulting low-hanging head. This occurred especially towards the end of the Miocene and during the Pliocene and Pleistocene. Besides the living white rhinoceros, the best-known fossil grass-eating representatives are the woolly rhinoceros, the steppe rhinoceros, Stephanorhinus hematoicus, and various members of the genus Elasmotherium. At least in the woolly rhinoceros, a mouth shape similar to that of the white rhinoceros has been demonstrated through fossil-preserved ice mummies. Another model of adaptation to a grass diet is observable in older lines, such as the Acerotherinae. Here, a shortening of the limbs occurred, causing a low body and head posture. These rhinoceros representatives could reach the ground with only a slight lowering of the head, and no elongation of the occipital bone took place, so the skull was predominantly carried horizontally. Well-known genera in this context are Chiliotherium and Teleoceras from the late Miocene. Both development models are characterized by the increase in tooth crown height to counteract the increased wear from the hard grass diet. The rhinoceros family is one of the most successful and diverse mammal groups in recent Earth history and can be traced back around 50 million years. During this time, a broad evolutionary development and adaptation to respective habitats, adaptive radiation, took place. Representatives of the rhinoceros family occupied almost every terrestrial biotope. Throughout their evolutionary history, there have been numerous anatomical changes. General evolutionary trends in rhinoceroses that largely ran through all lines and represented adaptations to specific biotopes include the shortening and widening of the skull, especially in the front facial area, the reduction in limb length, the reduction in the number of teeth, the molarization of premolars, and the increase in tooth crown height in the molars. Furthermore, two general development models can be identified: hornless rhinoceroses with a largely intact or extensive front dentition with enlarged teeth, and horn-bearing rhinoceroses with a greatly reduced or absent front dentition. The earliest known precursor of rhinoceroses was Hyraceus from the Middle Eocene of North America and Europe. It was about the size of a modern shepherd dog and had the complete mammalian dentition with barely molarized premolars. Due to its very basal position, this genus is classified as either taperoids or rhinoceratoids, depending on the view. Possible early forms of rhinoceroses are also documented in the Middle or Upper Eocene with Uintaceras and Teletaceras, but like all primitive representatives, they had no horn formation. Both forms were relatively small. Uintaceras is largely only recorded from North America, while Teletaceras was widespread and has been found in the Klarno Formation in North America and the Pondong Formation in Southeast Asia. The first real and already larger rhinoceroses appeared in the Upper Eocene, such as the cattle-sized Trigonias. The first rhinoceroses in Europe appeared with the large and hornless Rhonzotherium in the Lower Oligocene, evidenced by numerous sites. Epiacerotherium also appeared, possibly as early as the Upper Eocene. It had a largely Western Eurasian distribution similar to Rhonzotherium. Individual finds such as a skull from the fossil site of Nha Dung in Vietnam, however, indicate a wide occurrence extending into the eastern part of the continent. Like Rhonzotherium, Epiacerotherium is still part of the stem group of rhinoceroses. In Asia, representatives of Guatia also spread. In the Upper Oligocene, Europe and Asia shared numerous common rhinoceros lines. Protacerotherium, a member of the Acerotherinae characterized by a long, trunk-like snout and a reduced nasal region specialized in soft plant foods, developed. Diacerotherium, not to be confused with Dicerotherium, and Brachydicerotherium emerged as the first representatives of the hippopotamus-like, short-legged Teleoceratini, which lived partly in open forest landscapes and later also in savannas, and were specialized grass eaters with very high-crowned molars. In North America, its own rhinoceros lines developed, but the diversity of rhinoceroses there was significantly lower compared to Eurasia. Subhyracoddon, which also appeared in the Upper Eocene, evolved into the Dicerotherium line. These represented the first rhinoceroses with horn formations, but in this group, they were paired on the nose. With the appearance of Subhyracoddon and Dicerotherium, all primitive rhinoceroses with four-toed were replaced by more modern three-toed front feet by the end of the Oligocene in North America, a process that continued in Eurasia and Africa well into the Miocene. In the Miocene, there was a strong radiation of rhinoceroses, with great diversity. Rhinoceroses first reached African soil in the Lower Miocene. Early finds have been documented with Acerotherium and Brachypitherium in Egypt and Libya. Representatives of the Acerotherinae also reached North America and formed their own genera, such as Floridaceras and Aphalops. The Teleoceratini also migrated to North America. In Nebraska, at Vertigar Creek in the Ash Hollow Formation, where an entire herd with intact stomach contents was buried under volcanic ash, one of the best records of the teleoceras genus, which was one of the dominant herbivores of that time in North America, is found. Additionally, monoceras, originating from Eurasia, appeared, which, like Diceratotherium, had paired nasal horns but was a basal representative of the Rhinoceratini. But various originally North American rhinoceroses also migrated to Eurasia, such as individual representatives of the Diceratotherini. Significant, however, is the spread of hornless rhinoceroses, the Aceratherini, which produced numerous forms and included not only the already mentioned Aceratherium but also Alicornops and Chilitherium. The latter was particularly common. Furthermore, modern rhinoceros forms, such as Bugpterhinus as a basal form of the Elasmotherini, can already be detected in the lower Miocene. Notable is the first appearance of the still existing genera, such as the African forms Ceratotherium and Diceros, in the upper Miocene. The distribution area of Diceros must have originally been much larger, as the phylogenetically old species Diceros gansuensis also appeared in East Asia 5 to 7 million years ago. Furthermore, early representatives of the Dicerorhinina are documented in Eurasia, while Cynotherium and Ningxiotherium represent significantly more developed members of the Elasmotherini. The Rhinoceratina are detectable in this time period with Gaindotherium and Pungibotherium. At the end of the Miocene, a climatic cooling, combined with the spread of open steppe landscapes, led to the extinction of numerous rhinoceros species. This mainly affected the Aceratherini and part of the Teleoceratini. The entire rhinoceros fauna disappeared in North America, while only the Elasmotherini, Dicerorhinina, and Rhinoceratina survived in Eurasia. In Africa, the Diceratina and some species of Brachypitherium from the Teleoceratin group persisted. The time of the Pliocene and Pleistocene was mainly characterized by the further development of modern rhinoceros groups, such as Elasmotherini and Rhinoceratini. The latter include the still existing species. The primitive Dicerorhinina of Eurasia showed great diversity. However, little is known about the direct ancestors of the Sumatran rhinoceros. Notable is the rise of Coelodonta, known since the mid-Pliocene, to the woolly rhinoceros living at the end of the Pleistocene. The sister group Stephanorhinus split into several species adapted to different biotopes, as shown by the mid-Pleistocene forms of the forest and steppe rhinoceros. Both rhinoceros lines, however, ended in the late Pleistocene. The genus Rhinoceros has been detectable since the Pliocene and split into several forms. On the Philippines, the closely related Nezarhinus appeared in the Middle Pleistocene, one of the few forms of island dwarfism in rhinoceroses. In northern Eurasia, especially in Central Asia, the various representatives of Elasmotherium are documented. However, this genus of rhinoceros also became extinct in the late Pleistocene. In Africa, Diceros and Ceratotherium evolved into the species known today. At the end of the Pleistocene, a new wave of extinctions occurred, during which the rhinoceros lines of northern Eurasia disappeared. See Quaternary extinction event. Only the still existing rhinoceros re. At the end of the Pleistocene, there was another wave of extinctions, during which the rhinoceros lines of northern Eurasia disappeared. See Quaternary extinction event. Only the still existing rhinoceros species survived. That's it for now. In the next episode, we will take a look at clefable